Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. I just flew back from Adepticon and boy are my arms tired. I love Adepticon. Every time I go, it feels like I never left from the year before, although it is a lot. It was definitely the biggest year ever. I'm hoping that they find a new venue because it was packed, absolutely packed. I went there with the intention of getting 2 things and I ended up getting all this. But I don't feel embarrassed, maybe just a little bit, but I don't feel embarrassed because the great thing about Adepticon is it's all right there. All of the nerdiest, war gamiest stuff. And so it's always fun to try to find some stuff that you can't really get. Like you can buy most anything online, but it's really hard to actually get some of this really cool stuff just on Amazon. So join me on this Adepta haul where I try to remind myself of what I actually got. And it's time to make a little bit of a plan of when I'm actually going to get to all this stuff because I'm a little bit underwater with my pile of shame already, and I may have left Adepticon with a little bit more miniatures than I was planning on. The very first thing I got from Adepticon is in this white box that is very heavy. This is probably the coolest thing I got, and is one of the things that I got that is going into one of my army projects this year, and we'll get to this a little bit later. But the things I was actually laser focused on, wanted to get this Adepticon, I managed to get. I actually managed to get more, if you can believe it. I actually managed to get more than I planned on. One thing I really wanted was this mat. It's Arena Rex. I love Arena Rex. It's a Greco-Roman skirmish game. I actually got another miniature for it and the dice. I was so excited at the booth that they had the dice. I just assumed that the dice didn't exist because I've been checking their website like every other week for a year and a half and the dice are always out of stock. And so I didn't even look, but then Nick tapped me on the shoulder and he's like, hey, they have the dice. And so I got the dice. I'm so excited. I got all the dice for all of the different factions, or at least the factions that I have. I actually got to play this game. And this is like why Adepticon is the greatest thing ever, because I brought my models and we sat down, we opened the rule book, we start to try to work our way through a game. And one of the nerds we were just sitting next to was like, oh, is that Arena Rex? That's my favorite game of all time. I'll help you guys, I'll walk you through it. And he totally did. And he walked us through the game and it was so awesome. And stuff like that can only happen at Adepticon. This teeny tiny little game that's super cool with such beautiful models and beautiful miniatures and really good rules. And we got like our own private like learning session of this game. It's so much fun. I'm super excited for Arena Rex. I didn't quite get all of my models painted, but I got them all built and ready to go for the convention. So those are definitely next on the chopping block for painting, but I'm really excited to have all of the necessary swag. But speaking of swag, the other thing I actually planned on getting is a game that I've kind of been drooling over for a long time, but I never really pulled the trigger because I play 40K, I play Age of Sigmar, I play Warcry, I play the Kill Team, like I play those games, but I've always kind of liked the look of smaller, kind of not quite indie games, but like games that kind of blur the line between Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop miniatures. And so I got this game, Don't Look Back, from Blacksite Studios. This is a game based on 80s horror slasher movies. This game looks super cool because you play as like the high schoolers or the teenagers or the college or the campers, and you're all playing as these individuals being chased by a monster. And this book has all sorts of different things inside for playing the different types of monsters. You can play Freddy Krueger could be attacking you, Jason Voorhees, the dude from Halloween. There's even rules for like if littler things are coming after you, like gremlins. I'm really excited to get this game. And another thing that just super got me into this game is how cool it is. The measuring stick is a butcher knife. How perfect and on theme is that? Like it just helps you get into the game when you're measuring your movement with a butcher knife. It's hilarious, it's totally impractical, but it totally makes me want to play this game because it's just so much fun. And the expansion packs for this game are sold in VHS tapes. It's like I'm super excited. I'm gonna have to read this book so that I can create some really cool modules for us to play on our weekly game nights. I'm gonna have to rewatch all of my favorite 80s horror movies. it's gonna be a really good time. I'm gonna really have to like, cause I think you play on a fairly small sized gaming board. I might build a bunch of custom gaming boards. It's like, oh, we're gonna play like Friday the 13th. So I'm gonna build Camp Crystal Lake so that we can play these modules. And it comes with different types of enemies that you can face. I got the Wendigo, and I actually have a Wendigo model, but I want another Wendigo model because I want another try. It's been a few years since I painted a Wendigo. I want another try. And for the campers, I got some miniatures that very much resemble the Scooby-Doo gang. And so now I need to find a miniature of a classic white sheet ghost because like who doesn't want to play Scooby-Doo? Scooby-Doo in a tabletop skirmish game sounds like so much fun. I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole a little bit of like not quite wargamey games. And so while I was there, I ran into Uncle Atom and we had a lovely conversation about gaming. And so I picked up one of his newer games, Majestic 13. This game is a little bit like Roswell Aliens, X-Files. You put together a little band of like cultists or security guards, and you're fighting against an alien who's super powerful. So I'm definitely looking forward to giving this a read and then finding some models and like custom making my own warband of miniatures that are perfect for this game. But it is really nice to have like an excuse to get miniatures that aren't super specific. 40K is super specific in that like a sentinel is a sentinel is a sentinel. A space marine is a space marine is a space marine. It does what a space marine do. But for this, I can I could use quarters and buttons, but I want to build really, really cool custom miniatures that really help me get into the flavor of this game while I'm playing it. And speaking of flavor, a bunch of random ass miniatures caught my eye. I always check out the Impact Miniatures booth because they usually have pop culture miniatures and they did not disappoint. Ooh, let's eat dessert first. This might be my favorite purchase of the entire convention. Hilariously, the weekend before Adepticon, I rewatched The Big Lebowski, one of my favorite movies, and this model is the Dude. And the Dude abides. The laziest man in all of California. And I think he will actually play really well in Don't Look Back. I think I can customize his character to make him like super, super incredibly lazy, zero perception, but unbelievable amounts of luck. It'll be really, really fun. Another miniature I found that I didn't know existed, but desperately needed to have is the little spooky guy from Trick or Treat. I love Trick or Treat, one of my favorite Halloween movies, and I can paint one. I think I'm gonna use this guy for Malifaux because I have the Spooky Dookie faction in Malifaux, and this guy would replace a ghoul so well and be so thematic and perfect. It's Little Spooky Sam. Little Spooky Sam from one of my favorite movies. I call all movies my favorite movie because I just love movies so much, but Little Spooky Sam. And speaking of Spooky Sam, one of my favorite miniature producers is Bombshell Miniatures. They make some really, really cool stuff. One thing I got probably for Don't Look Back, I've been thinking about Don't Look Back for over a year. I really, really wanted to get into this game, and I really want to get some really, really cool miniatures for this game. I want gremlins. I don't know if gremlin miniatures exist. A lot of gremlins skew very goblin-y because most games need goblins, but I thought these would make some really, really fun gray aliens. They're little octopus men with ray guns and big old brains. They're so little and they're so characterful and they're so flavorful. They're gonna paint up so quickly and be so much fun to have. I'm gonna have to start a shelf for like non-40K. Everything around me is 40K, and I love 40K, but random ass models, like I'm in the mood to do some random ass painting, and these guys are now top of the list. They're so, so cute. And speaking of so cute, one thing that you guys have probably noticed on this table is this guy, this lovable little furball. This is from one of my favorite companies, Malifaux, a wonderful little company out of Georgia. Weird, they make one of my favorite games, Malifaux. I did get a Malifaux mini, but really, I love this little plushie. He is gonna look so cute on my shelf. I can't quite remember the Malifaux character that this guy is based on, but it is a pretty darn accurate replica in cushy, squishy form. And I just couldn't say no. I just couldn't say no to this lovable little fluff ball. Although Malifaux is a great one to find at a convention because they have a lot of exclusive miniatures. Usually you can get these exclusive miniatures by ordering online. Like usually they'll have a deal where if you order a certain number of miniatures, you can get an exclusive, but those exclusives rotate. They're not always available, but they had quite a few of them at the convention. And so I got Misguided. Get it? Misguided? She's misguided. But this character actually counts as Fuhatsu for the 10 Thunders, which I need for my list, but I don't really like the original Fuhatsu miniature. And so this is gonna look much better in my crew. And it wouldn't have happened without Adepticon. I guess I could have kept my eyes open. Well, I didn't even know this existed though, so I couldn't have kept my eyes open to make sure that I get this exclusive miniature, but Adepticon came through for me. So I can finally get my 10 Thunders well, they're playable now, but she makes them a lot better. So I'm really, really excited to have this in my Malifaux crew. And speaking of things that just work better at conventions, one thing I got almost before they kicked us out of the vendor hall is I got these lovely little coins. And there's nothing super special about these coins. They're lovely. They've got little D&D characters on them, but this is something that's actually kind of hard to buy. I've ordered things like this on Amazon, and the picture always looks lovely of like pirate booty or little coins and tokens. And then you get it and it's cheap and plasticky and crappy and it doesn't look anything like the picture. But when you're at the convention, you can feel it in your hands, you can touch it. I mean, they were telling me not to touch it, but I was touching it anyway. And it was just so much fun. And I'm like, these are actually nice. I'm gonna buy a whole bunch of them so that we can have them for tokens in our games. And we actually have these lovely little things. And yeah, something really hard to get anywhere besides like an actual tournament or vendor hall. Yeah, some nice heavy booty. But speaking of heavy booty, one big thing they have a lot at Adepticon is secondhand models. And I got some really great secondhand models. I got Scout Sentinels that are really, really nicely built, and I got them for a pretty darn good price. I'm really excited to add these to my Gene Stealer Cult collection. And while I was searching through bins and bins and bins of miniatures, I found some absolute gems. This little drug baggie right here, they thought was an Imperial Guard unit because it was in the Imperial Guard box, but it is in fact a super classic retro orc that somebody did a very nice job of kit bashing to have an Imperial Guard flamethrower. And so I'm like, I need that little second edition orc. He's gonna look great. I found this. An old classic orc buggy, complete. Look at how skinny it is. This was the height of plastic injection molded awesome vehicles back in the day. Now it looks like a pancake, but I got these two classic retro orcs. I might have to try to snag some more and do like a little warband, like a classic retro orc warband. But yeah, really excited to have this weird little thing. For some reason, no one was pulling the trigger on it probably because it looks really, really dumb. But I love the look of Old Hammer. I have a pretty decent Old Hammer collection, and this is going right in the pile. And speaking of the pile I will definitely get to, I also bought some terrain. We here at EonsBattle make our own terrain. You can find it on our Patreon. Over there, we have a new set of terrain every month. This month, it's the modular Gothic buildings. These impressive structures are designed with competitive war games in mind. They're the perfect size, shape, and have functional windows for all your line of sight blocking needs. And to add some decorations to the set, we have saber cherubs to spice up your terrain and miniatures. And if you always want to stay up to date on the goings on here at Eons of Battle and be entered into our monthly giveaways, this month we're picking 3 followers to receive this month's terrain. You can follow the link in the description below to sign up to our newsletter. But speaking of Adepticon terrain, I got some terrain elements for some games that I never get to play. These little plastic chunky boys are they may or may not be based on the Hoth Echo base turrets that are gonna look great for my games of Star Wars Legion, which I have been painting behind the scenes, and me and Sean are getting back into it a little bit, and these are gonna help turn some of my 40K terrain boards into a little bit more Star Wars-y terrain boards. I saw this little well, and this is the welliest little well that has ever welled. I don't have much fantasy terrain, but I would like to make some really cool fantasy stuff because I'm getting into a game called Relic Blade and Moonstone. And both of them are set in kind of like a fun, happy fantasy universe. And so this little well spoke to me, and I really want to take it and make it pretty and make it nice, and it's gonna look so good in my games. And speaking of some just random elements that are gonna spice up my games, I got some cannons that I wanna build little kind of bastions for. They're just gonna add a little bit more like thematic crunchiness to my fantasy games. And another really fun thing I found is from Cromlech, little metal like candelabras. These are kind of great because I'm getting into Sisters of Battle. I'm making myself a humongous laundry list, to-do list for painting. But these are gonna be for my Sisters of Battle. And what's great is that they're metal. And so I've been putting 3D printed resin candles on my miniatures, and they work fine and they look pretty darn good, but I'm super clumsy, and so I've broken a lot of them. These are metal. If I attach these to my miniatures, I think I have a pretty good chance of them being a little bit less fragile and a little bit less breakable. They'll definitely bend, but then I can just bend them back. And so I'm really excited for these guys just to spice up my miniatures that much more. One thing I always like to keep my eyes open for at Adepticon is new tools that I can take into my painting and try out to see if I can do some really, really cool things. And this is from Anarchy Models. It is a little stencil of tiny, tiny, tiny hexes. And it's made out of really, really soft plastic, and it's reusable. So I'm hoping I can do some really, really cool like hex camo or like energy effects. I really wanna play around with something like this. There's been a few times in my painting where I'm like, I really wish I had the perfect stencil. I even thought about like taking my X-Acto knife and just trying to make a tiny, tiny, tiny little stencil. I just need it for this one little shield. It'd be so perfect. But then I give up and I just paint it freehand, and then it doesn't look very good. I'm gonna try this. I'm really excited to give this a shot to see what I can do with my airbrush in a hex grid. The perfect, like, nobody would make this hex grid except for people who want to spice up miniature wargaming miniatures. And so it's really fun to have such a specific tool. The only other thing I got from Adepticon is just some of the weirdest miniatures I could find. One of those being this little gremlin, which might be the ugliest thing I have ever seen. It is from a game called Free Blades. It's a little potbelly gremlin guy. Isn't that fun? It's so weird. It's super creepy, super weird. I think it's gonna paint up really, really well. It's called Demon. Borgat the Demon. Borgat the little monster demon. From Bombshell Miniatures, I got the tiniest little gremlin carrying a wrench, and he's actually got like aviator goggles on. This model, painted up in the display, this model looked incredible. It is about an inch tall. That might be a little bit generous, but it is the tiniest little miniature. And so I'm hoping I can get this guy painted up in like a half hour and have it be really, really good because it's just such a tiny, tiny miniature. And also from Bombshell Miniatures, this is probably Lady Groot or just a tree inspired character, but this is for Don't Look Back, when the forest fights back. My Scooby-Doo gang is gonna be chased around the forest by a creepy, creepy tree lady. I actually have an entire army of creepy tree ladies in my Sylvaneth for Age of Sigmar, but this is the model that is going to be specifically for Don't Look Back. And the last weird miniature I got is a classic Reaper Bones. I spent so long looking through all of the Reaper Bones miniatures, and I landed on this pirate-looking dude who has a little cohort, a little trio of puppets wandering behind him. I think this will make another great villain for Don't Look Back to chase the Scooby-Doo gang around. This is probably an episode of Scooby-Doo, a weird puppet master who has his little puppet minions go after Scooby and the gang. And so I think this will make for some really, really fun modules of Don't Look Back. But all of this stuff, in my opinion, kind of pales in comparison to how awesome this model is. Boom! Battle castings. This thing is really, really cool because it is kind of not a real miniature. And it's one thing that I absolutely adore. It is a garage kit. And I've bought many a garage kit over the years. A garage kit is like a homemade model kit. Just some guy had an idea in his mind, something that he needed to bring into the world, And so he made it happen, and he made a run of them available to other folks. This miniature, which is giant and awesome, is based on it's inspired by the original, the first ever artwork of a Land Raider way back in the days of Rogue Trader. I have a old beige Rogue, like second edition. I think it came out in second edition, the original Land Raider in ugly cheese colored plastic. And so I want to build one of those up and then compare it to this guy's masterful brain of what he thought an OG Land Raider should look like. It is big, beautiful, chunky resin pieces straight from this guy's garage, straight from his brain, and it is now here with me. I have a bunch of garage kits, a lot of them of like Star Wars lightsabers and weapons, and it just adds so much provenance, like so much story to this thing that doesn't really exist except for in that dude's garage, and a couple of people now get to have it, and I'm one of those people. That's super, super cool. This guy is 110% going in a video, but let me know in the comments if any of this other stuff has piqued your interest and you would like to see it in a video. I have to put some things away. I have to get some things on the painting desk. I have to take a nap because I am unbelievably tired. Thanks for watching.